Welcome, everybody, to a very special session for Devtoberfest related to SAP Build. Of course, it's our favorite subject, AI, but this time, how does it affect SAP Build and particularly SAP Build Apps? Before we begin and talk to our very special guest, I just want to remind everybody to join the Devtoberfest group, if you haven't already. So you're eligible for the contest and the grand prize. And towards the grand prize, I just want to remind you to do the session tutorial, which we'll post in the description and the chat. And from that, you can earn points. So now I'd like to introduce Kirill, our very special guest, to talk about AI.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a big pleasure to be here. So again, my name is Kirill. I'm part of the SAP Build Apps engineering team. And specifically, I've been focusing on AI as of recent because I've made a lot of breakthroughs, and I'm fairly certain that a lot of people here in this broadcast have used AI in the past week. If you have, please make sure to put it in the chat so I know how many of you have used ChatGPT, for instance. I mean, it's the most basic AI there is, but you can see the field has really expanded to much more than text generation, but we will get into that later. So first, let's start with a little presentation to just brush up on our knowledge of AI and to really understand some of the concepts I'm going to be referring to. Give me a moment. Oh, I'm sorry, a little technical hiccup. I will have to rejoin the session in just a minute. I will not take more than that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
We'll wait for you.
Thank you.
I'll tell you something a little bit about Kirill until he gets back. Kirill is in charge of documentation, but also a lot of enablement activities. You can see him in the community. He's written blogs about AI, but also written all kinds of very useful blogs, sort of off the beaten track, related to like validating fields and very things that people ask about all the time, and things they'd like to do, particularly in Build Apps. So that's Kirill. We've known each other for a year or two, ever since the appGyver acquisition. And he's been quite helpful. And he's always writing about what's new in SAP Build Apps. Let me admit him to the session. Okay, and I think Kirill will be back. You back?
Yes, I am.
Very good.
Yeah,
good to have you back.
Latest macOS update has not been so successful for me, unfortunately, but that is okay. There will be always things like this. Anyhow, yes. So can you just quickly confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Awesome. All right. So welcome everybody to Empowering SAP Build Apps with OpenAI. And today we're going to be talking about integrating Build Apps with OpenAI. So on the agenda, let's have this really quick presentation to brush up the knowledge on some of the AI terms and what AI really means for us developers. And then we'll go straight to the demo session. What can you really expect from my session? Well, first and foremost, you will learn how to integrate OpenAI language models to SAP Build Apps. And I will show you two different ways to do so. And I will explain which of those is more relevant to your use case and which UX you should choose, and DX as well, developer experience, when integrating OpenAI. Second, we will see how to integrate AI into your existing applications or how to build new applications around it. So AI can be integrated almost everywhere. And yeah, I'm going to show that. So next is, what is the right UX practices when it comes to AI interactions? Because when your users use your AI, you want to give them the best experience possible. So this feature does become enjoyable and relevant. And the last thing is tips and tricks about developing with SAP Build Apps. And I will try to explain everything I do in as much detail as I can, so that everyone, no matter with your experience with SAP Build Apps or formerly AppGyver, can participate in developing AI applications and can benefit from this. So first of all, what is AI? Well, AI, more specifically generative AI, is a subset of AI that refers to machine learning systems that produce text, graphics, code, or any other kind of material, for instance, music or audio. And it is frequently done so in response to user input. So again, AI takes some kind of input or a prompt, as we say in AI language, and then produces something out of that. So what is it actually beneficial for? Well, it really improves customer interaction through enhanced chat and search experiences. That's one of the most common use cases you see nowadays. You can see a lot of companies integrating AI into their help services to better assist users without too much human involvement, at least in the beginning of the interaction. Second, it can explore vast amount of unstructured data through conversational interfaces and summarizations. So it's very convenient that you can give AI a lot of information and get a response, a summary, or it would process the data as quickly as possible, much quicker than a human being can do, simply because AI is run on supercomputers with, and those supercomputers can operate 24/7. They don't need to eat, sleep. They're always kind of responsive in the same way. So it's a very great tool. And two, it can assist with repetitive tasks. And I have personally been building tools for myself to automate my day-to-day work using AI. When it comes to robotic tasks or like copy pasting or repeating the same process over and over again, it's incredibly convenient, and actually spending time to automate those using AI saves so much more time in the future. And lastly, what exactly is prompting? I already mentioned this word, but prompting is basically providing a clear guidance to the AI model in order to ensure that the generated response is relevant and useful to your case. So the most basic rule of AI is that you never just ask the question, but you always need to outline the exact requirement for the answer. So let's take an example. Let's say I am building a tool for developers to generate code. So let's take a look at the first example. If I just say, write me a sorting function in JavaScript, you can see that ChatGPT will give you the code, yes, but it will output explanation, then even more explanation at the bottom. It will add comments to the code, and at the end of the day, it will actually decide which sorting algorithm to output, in this case, bubble sort. So this is not what I want. Let's say I want ChatGPT to only give me the code without any comments, without any explanations, so it will be easier for me to then integrate it to my tool. And using prompting, as you can see, my prompt is much larger and has more instructions. I am getting what I want. So the response is so much more different, and it is what I want. And again, it is because I did outline the exact requirements and I told it what I want in return. So now with that, let's continue to the demo. I'll quickly stop sharing. Close the presentation. And I will share another screen. So yes, you can see it now. So two things we need. On the right, we can see the SAP Build lobby, which is the entry point to SAP Build Apps with this app here. And second is the OpenAI portal. The URL for it is platform.openai.com. And let's start by quickly exploring it. So on the left, you can see the usage. You can track how much your model was used before and how much did it cost you, because it is a paid service. Then you can see, yeah.
Sure. Whenever you can, just make your screens as big as you can, whenever possible. Okay. Just make sure that everybody can see the screens. Okay.
They are already. Is it
Okay.
in bad quality or?
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, I can do
Yeah,
this.
that's
I
even
think.
better. Great.
All right. Thanks for telling me. But yeah, back to this, you can see your rate limits. There's also the billing information, members. You can add more users, but this has sensitive data, so I'm not going to get into it. But let's go to the API reference, because this is where the integration actually happens. So OpenAI has really great documentation, and you can check it out for yourself. But what we will focus on here is the endpoints, which we're going to call. And before, if you have ever tried integrating OpenAI, you probably know the concept of completions, and that's exactly what I just talked about. So completions work in a way that you give an AI an input and it will give you a response. But the problem here is if then you make another API call and you give another completion, AI will be totally unaware of the very first completion that you sent it. So all of the completions here are basically in a vacuum, in a sandbox. They're not related to each other. And that is not, this is not great for all of the use cases. So OpenAI actually has deprecated it, I suppose, or at least it's in the legacy, and they advise you to switch to the chat. And chat is where you can actually talk to the AI. So they have switched their narrative from input-output model to more constant input-output flow, where you can chat with the AI. So let's take a look on what is required. So yeah, create chat completion. You can see that they have quite a lot of examples for Python, for Node.js. Then you can also switch between models if you want to copy paste this response. But let's focus on the curl, because generally speaking, you need to be looking at CURL examples when you're integrating to build apps. So we need to send a post request to the following API, and it should include two headers: the content type, application JSON, and the bearer authentication endpoint. Then the data should be the model which we're referencing. In this case, it's in the example is GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is the brains of the current ChatGPT, which is available for everybody. And then we have this array or list of messages, and each message is accompanied by a role. In this case, system or assistant will be the ChatGPT, and user will be you, so your prompt. And this is what makes it work. This is why the chat works, because then the AI will know which of these texts relate to you and which of those texts were given already by the AI. So these are really the only required things. And a little bit about the bearer token. You can read more about it, but basically in the authorization header, you always need to put this word here, space, followed by the OpenAPI key. And to generate the OpenAPI key, you actually need to go back to your portal and then click the API keys here. And then you will go to create new secret key, give it a name, and then create the secret key. All right, but we will come back to this a little later, sorry. And then let's go back here. All right, so I mean, the integration from the developer perspective looks incredibly easy. If you were doing it with code, you could just copy paste it from the website. It doesn't take much than that. But now let's look on how it's done in SAP Build Apps. And for this, let's do a little role play of us being a developer who has been assigned to integrate AI into a fitness application. So let's say I have been just given access to this build lobby. Let's open up the application. Yes, and as you can see, it's a fitness application. It has quite a few pages. We can take a look at them. It has a dashboard. It has some settings, some registration, whatever, very generic app. And for for our developer convenience, we always need to start with previewing the app. So let's go to the preview portal, preview, and then if you want to simulate mobile on web, you can actually inspect it and toggle this button over here, and it will very nicely give you like this mobile view. Then you can switch to console in your tab so that you can see errors or potential anything. So let's just take a look at the app. So you can start by signing up. So let's see, John, it's a male, he's of age 23, let's say, he is 70 kg and his height is 172. And then he accepts the privacy policy and he is sent to the dashboard. So you can see his name, his BMI. He can go and add exercises. Let's say he did bench press for 2 sets, right? You can see the exercises here. So it's a very bare bones application, but the problem is it's very technical. The user needs to do everything. They need to think about what exercises they want to do. They need to think about tracking everything. So how would we actually integrate the AI here? And the initial thought that I had is we can actually make this app more human. In a sense, we can use AI to create this virtual fitness assistant that is available 24/7 and that can assist our users with any questions that they have about their fitness. And because this is all done in Build Apps, we can actually then use their name, age, and their data to give a more personalized response. So let's go back to the app editor and let's start the actual integration. So first of all, let's go to the data tab over here, click create data entity and open the REST API direct integration because this is REST API. Then in the resource ID, you can name it anything, but for convenience, let's put OpenAI. In the short description, let's describe it as OpenAI integration. And then as the resource URL, we need to put the base URL of this API. So let's do openai.com/api.openai.com/v1, right? Then secondly, we can see that there are 2 headers required. And actually, if you check the documentation, those 2 headers for authorization and content type are required everywhere and every single request. So Build Apps has in this great REST API feature, it's actually very convenient. You can add HTTP headers in the base configuration of the REST API, and those headers will then be used with every single request. Because as you can see, if we switch between these requests, there are different HTTP header settings for each of them. But if you define them in the base one, you don't need to do that anywhere else. So it's very convenient. So let's go ahead and simply just copy everything. So as the label is the content type and the key is content type as well. It's type text. You could optionally put a description, but this description will be visible to other developers using it. Is it static? We need to say yes, because it will not change in the future. And then as the value, we put the application JSON, right? Then the second header that we need is the authorization. So the same logic, we put the label as authorization, key authorization, and is of type text, and it is static. Now for the value, this is where it gets tricky, as I mentioned. You need to copy this bearer, then put a space, and then copy your open API key here. Because API keys are sensitive, I'm going to do this off screen right now because, like, reminding you again, as a developer, please do not ever leak your your API keys to anybody, because then anybody can take advantage of your account. So I'm going to just put this on my second screen. I'm going to generate the API key as I showed you before. I'm going to copy it. Perfect. Now I can bring the tab back, and as you can see, I copied it. Thankfully, OpenAI really hides it here. Now I'm going to take Build Apps and I'm going to paste the key here. After that, I'm going to switch to the other request type so that I don't reveal the API key. But I hope this was clear enough where that key goes. All right. Now the key is in, and we can go to the post request, and we can actually enable it. It's awesome how SAP Build Apps has the flexibility to connect and consume several types of data. Yes, you're right. It's very nice, and it's amazing how there is this REST API integration, which basically allows you to configure API once, and then you can reuse it anywhere in the application as many times as you need. All right, so we switch to the post request because, as you can see from the documentation, this is what is actually required. Then we will go to schema. And here in the create record post request schema, we will choose custom schema because we want to define this, this custom schema of the request. So we can see the properties of the schema list, and we can add our first property. Why is it a post request, to ask a question? Well, it's required by OpenAI, and I suppose by their architecture design, you are sending data over. So generally, it is a developer practice to make it a post request because you are actually sending over. If we were getting information from OpenAI, it would most likely be a GET request. It is, well, it is simply how it's done usually. All right, so we created our first property, and we need to name it messages. As we can see from the documentation, it's a list of objects. So that's exactly what we're going to choose here. In the value type, you scroll all the way down, you choose list. And then in the list item type, you choose an object here, right? So you can see it's now a list of object with one property. And here we have an ID property. Obviously, we don't need it, so we can simply remove it. Then, if we click back on messages, we can add new properties. So there are only two of them required, which is the role, click, and then content, click. So both of them are strings, as we can see. So both content and role are text, not a string, sorry. Got a little technical here. And then messages is done, but then the second property that we need is the model, right? So, oh wait, my bad. You click add property here, and then you put the key to model, and the model is text as well. So again, what you really need is messages, which is a list of objects with two properties, as seen here, role and content, and the model is also a text. So that's that. When you have defined that, you can go to test, and you can see here the record properties turns into object. If you click it, we can see our messages and our model. So for model, we are going to be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo all the way. And for messages, we can actually use this, again, a very convenient feature of SAP Build Apps. We can just type the value we want to add to this array. So the role here is the user. Obviously, we are a user. And then as the content, well, we can ask pretty much any question. What's SAP Build Apps? Sure, let's see what it thinks about it. So after we save, we can see that there is one item which we just entered, and then the model is GPT 3.5 Turbo. If we save that, and we can then run test. Oh, okay. So if you see this error, please always check that the relative path is correct. As you can see, I did not complete the path. I only have the base type. So if you make a post request here, it obviously won't work, but we actually need to add this remaining trail of the URL. So now the full URL becomes api.openai.com v1 /chat/completion. So then if I run the test now, we need to wait for the AI process. Yes, we can see a successful response with everything here. So what really is relevant is this message object. We can see the role is now assistant, and the content is our response. So it says SAP Build Apps is a user experience design and prototyping tool provided by SAP, and whatever. Now, when we have this successful response with status OK, we can actually use this button, set schema from response. And if we click it, we will see that this schema now appears over here in the schema tab. And this is incredibly convenient because later on, when we're going to be actually using this schema, Build Apps will know that this API has this specific schema, and it will allow to autocomplete some of the responses. You will see it in the future. I will mention explicitly where that is convenient. But yes, you can open now all of these and see, you can see all of them have the specific type. They are just as is here. So when you have done this, when you get this successful response, you can simply just save the data entity, and the integration is complete from the technical side. Now you can start actually consuming this data connection. And yeah, all right. So let's actually build something using this AI, right? So as I mentioned here in this fitness application, it would be really convenient if there would be kind of this virtual assistant that is always at your service, and you can ask it this fitness questions. Before displaying the response on Build Apps, is there a way to remove certain parts of the content? Yes, certainly. There is this formula language that we have that has a large collection of different functions that allow you to do almost any text manipulations, and you can easily remove the content. We will actually do this in the session, so it will come later in the future when we actually do the integration. So let's create a new page. Let's call it chat, and let's create actually a chat application or a chat component, chat component, to talk to the AI as it was our fitness coach. So for that, let's put a container, which will be our singular message. Let's put a title into the container, and let's put text. You can also use this layout tree to easily move your components around. So now this container is a singular message. Let's go to the style tab and give it a secondary card styling so it really pops out. You can see that this is a separate message. You can also click here and click edit and do all of this advanced like manipulations with the style, but we will not do this. This is totally up to you. You can style it as you want. I'm going to be using just more or less native or basic functionality here. Then after we styled it, we need to actually drag another container and then use this container and put it in this one. I will explain later why that is relevant, but for now, just do this. So you have this one container, and which has another container which acts as a single message. You can actually here edit the name of the component in case you want to make it easier for you or for any other developer. So let's do that also for the viewer convenience. And after that, we will need a component that will take the input from the user, right? So let's drag this input field here. And then we need some kind of call to action to actually send the message that the user has typed. So let's put a button over here. So yeah, that is pretty much all we need for the chat. Next, we will need to go to the variables tab. And in the variables tab, we need to define an app variable which will hold the conversation history for our chat. Because again, look at the API. the API expects us to send this list of all messages that have ever been sent to the AI. So we need to somehow store them on the application so that the AI always have context of anything that was sent before. So for that, we can create an app variable. Just click add app variable. Let's name it chat history, and it needs to be pretty much the same as these messages. So again, we put it to type list and list of objects. We can again remove the ID and then add our two properties, which is role and content. Again, this variable is simply for storing the chat history. It will basically be a list that we're going to, it's a variable that we're going to send instead of us typing the messages ourselves. So after we have created that, we can see a list of objects with the properties and to text. Then let's go to page variables and let's create a page variable called input. And this variable will hold the user input from the input field. And the reason why I am separating these two variables into app and page variables is because app variables exist in the context of the whole application, as you can see here. And using this chat history might be convenient in case you want to integrate the AI somewhere else on another page, not on this chat page, while I'm putting the input as a page variable because page variables exist only in the context of the current page. So we don't really need this input anywhere else rather than this page. Of course, you could put the input as an app variable and it will work perfectly fine. But for your developer experience and for developer experience of others, you should always try to use all of these variable types just to make, again, the developer experience good. So after that, switch to the view and let's click this first container and let's set this repeat with property. So when you click it, you can go to data and variables, click the app variable, and you can see the chat history available. Click on it and save. Now you can see that the component has expanded. So what just happened is we have populated this container component with the data from chat history. So then we can actually go to the message over here, click the title, click the binding icon here, and click data, item, and repeat. And we know that the data that is in repeat is the chat history. If you click it, show current, and you can see content and role. As the title, let's set the role so we can see who put the message. And then as text, we again go here, data, item, and repeat, current, and put the content. So our message will have the role at the top and then the actual text that has been sent at the bottom. Yeah, I hope that is clear. This repeat with concept might be a little confusing, but you will see it in action. It basically is a dynamic data binding to this component, and then we have went to title and text, and we have used that dynamic data binding to put it specifically elsewhere. All right. Then let's go to the input over here, input field, and as the value of the input field, let's bind it to the page variable. As you can see, it's again very convenient. Build Apps understands what kind of variables and variable types do you have, so it then blocks the ones that are not compatible. In the app variables, we have list of objects. Of course, you cannot bind a list to a text or number field. So we go to page variables, and our input is a text. So we can bind it, save the application, and that is pretty much it for variable binding. Now let's do the logic. So when the user clicks the button, something needs to happen, right? So an API call needs to be made or whatever. Yes, that's right. I am repeating with the app variable because I want to display all of the messages from our history, not from the API. So I want to have all of the messages. So that's why I'm repeating with history. So let's click this button and let's rename it to send to make it a clear call to action what it actually does. And let's configure our logic. So this might get a little complicated. So please bear with me here. First thing that we want to do is we want to add this user input to our history of messages. So for that, let's use this set app variable flow function. And in the set app variable, you can see build apps auto completes the variable with chat history. Let's simply verify, yes. And then in the assigned value, let's not click the custom list, but let's go and bind it to a formula. And in this case, we want to add the user response that we just received to our history, because then when we send that history, it will have this new user response and the AI will be able to answer us. So to do that, we need to use this formula with item. As you can see from the description, it will return a list which contains the given item at the end of the list. So we can double click this, and first we need to provide the list. Obviously, our list is the chat history. So double click that. And as an item, we need an object. And as you know already from the API, the object should contain the role and content. And if I enter an empty object, you can see Build Apps understands that and actually says that the property role is missing and the property content is missing. And this is, if you remember, I said it's very important that you set the schema of the response in the data connector. And because we did that, Build Apps now really understands what needs to be done. So let's actually do that. So let's, as a role, let's put user, because we know that at this point the user is the one sending the response. And then as content, we simply put page vars, which stands for page variables input. And if we do that, the formula lights up green, and this is correct. So again, with this formula, we are adding this object, which is the new input, to our chat history. So we can save that. We can save the application for good measure. All right. So now that we have the user request in the history, we need to actually send that history for processing, right? So let's use the create record flow function. Let's connect it to the end of set app variable. So as you can see, the flow now goes that if you tap the component, it will add the input to the history, and then it will create a record or send a post request with the data. So again, here I have some other data connectors. So you need to click and choose OpenAI from the list, save. Yeah, okay. And then again, you need to use a formula. And as you can see already, it says that it needs the model and the messages. So let's simply put an empty object, and let's put model to be GPT 3.5 Turbo. You can just copy it from the API guide again. And then as the messages, very conveniently, we can just send the chat history over here. So yeah, the logic feature is really good. I agree. So again, the formula lights up green. As you can see, it's red here. So just click on it and the Build Apps will revalidate your input. And as you can see, it all turns to normal afterwards. So again, as the model, we send GPT 3.5 Turbo, and as messages, we just send our chat history that we just populated with the user input. So we can save that. As you may notice, the create record has two outputs actually. The top one is the success output, and the bottom one is the error. It's very important that you take an alert or a toast function and you attach it to the error field. And then in the alert function, you configure the title to be output of another node, of another logic node, create record, and you click error. So basically, in case the create record fails for any given reason, it will actually alert us with what the error actually was, and we can then debug the application. Right.
Carol, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sure.
Probably a stupid question. So you called ChatGPT, OpenAI, and you sent the history of the messages, but what about the input message?
Yes, here in the set app variable, we put that input to the history, and then we sent it to the OpenAI. And what OpenAI will do, it will return the answer to that input.
Very good. Thanks.
Yes, right. Yes, that is a very good question, and I think this is the most difficult part of this logic to understand that. But yeah, and we have configured the create record, and if the create record was successful, then OpenAI will give us a response to the input that we just given. So what we need to do is we need to do the similar thing that we just did, but we need to add the output from AI to our history again. So let's add a setup variable to the successful input, chat history again. Let's go to formula. We can actually, for your convenience, we can go here and we can copy the previous formula, go to setup variable, and then we go to assigned value, we go to formula, and then here, instead of the user, we will actually get the data from the previous response. So let's erase both role and content. And as for role, you can click here from this amazing formula library, and you can choose output of another node. Then you see create record, response, choices, and then you find this role here. Let me just check that this is, yes, this is right. So you can double click this. So now there will be a new entry, and the role will be taken from the response. And the content is you go to create record, response message, content. So yes, this is the complete formula, and then you save it. And then just for good developer experience, you can actually erase the input from the UI by using the set page variable. In this case, you see it auto-complete the input, and the assigned value, you just put a space here, and you can say. So again, let's go through the logic. When a user will click a button, the input that they have provided in the input field will be added to the history. Then that history is then sent to the AI. The AI will see that in the history there is an unanswered question. It will then return the answer to that question, and then we add that answer to the history. So I hope that is convenient. Can you paste the formulas to the chat? Yes, I am unfortunately not logged in at the moment, but I can, after the session, I can provide them all.
If you put it in our chat, I can put it in.
Yes. Okay. I will do that in a moment once we finish up and like move on to the questions. But I will paste for the formulas. I have them saved. So yes, this is the logic. Again, we take the input, put it in the history, we send the history, we get the response to that question, and we set the response to the history again. And then we wipe the input. So that is that for the logic. And this is the most complicated thing that you need to do. Again, we need to do this history manipulation only because we need to store the history locally and then send it over. This is how this API works. If you were doing this with code, you would have to maintain a local database copy or something of that history nevertheless. But thankfully in Build Apps, it takes just 2 flow functions, nothing more. So let's see this in action. But first, let's go back to, let's say, the home page, and let's add a button on top that says test, and then add a flow function. Now I want to display only the response to the last question, not all previous history. How to do that? Yes, that is we will get to this, all right? But it's very nice that you're thinking ahead. So to the test button, let's just do an open page flow function, and let's open the chat. Open the chat page, and let's save the application. So now the application is saved, and we go back. We see this test. Let's click it, and we have our chat. So now you don't see anything apart from the input and the button. So let's give it some input. So let's say, what's Build Apps? Again, the same question, but let's see if it has anything. So when you hit send, you will see that the chat message pops up here. You are the user, the question Build Apps, and then the response appears here. Because we have used this data repetition feature, this will automatically like manage everything for us, and we'll add more and more components as we go. So let's now ask, what is AI? Let's do send, and it will again add it as a user, and then the assistant will give more information. So that is nice, but the problem is we were building a fitness application, right? Why is our fitness coach replying to us about what is Build Apps or what is AI? The fitness coach is not supposed to be answering these questions. And this is where prompting becomes really relevant. As I mentioned before, prompting allows us to get the response we actually want, and not the response, not some random information. So let's go back to the builder, and let's go back to the chat. And here, let's do some cosmetic changes, and let's apply prompting so that the response will be correct. So if we click on the title, we go back, we can see that both assistant and user are are written in lowercase. Also, assistant doesn't really make sense. So what we can do here as the title, we can actually click on the binding icon, we can go to the formula, and we can then apply custom title depending on what role the user actually takes. So let's copy this current role, and let's put an if statement. And as the condition, let's check if the current role is user. So we put repeated current role, so whatever is in the component right now. If it's user, then as a true value, let's put you. So when the message comes from the user, the title will say you. And if it's false, so it doesn't come from the user, we can say fitness coach, actually. And you can see, again, the formula validates. So again, we are checking if the role is user, then you should display you as the true value, and its fitness coach is its false. So let's save that. So we fixed that. Now it will be very convenient, and we'll see that. But let's apply the prompting. Now, if we go here to create record and we click this formula, we can see, let me see, wait. Yes, no, sorry, you go to the user response. So as you can see, we are adding our page vars input, so the input from our user, without any filtering, without any modifications. So a user is essentially capable of talking to the AI about anything. So here, again, in the first view, when we are adding the user's input to the history, we need to erase this, and actually let's add an empty text before and add this. As you can see, this is valid. And now we can design a prompt that will limit the AI to only answer questions about the fitness and nothing else. So let's say we can put, you are my fitness coach. Do not answer any questions unrelated to fitness. If I ask such question, reply that you don't know. And then you put dot and you put space. So now the user's input will always be accompanied with this filter that you as an AI, you're my fitness coach, do not answer any questions. And the good thing, the user actually will not be able to know that you are applying this filter. So it will be a great UX where a user can talk to the fitness coach, but if they somehow ask anything else, the AI will just say, I don't know, like a very generic answer that doesn't expose that you have actually done this filtering. So if you save, and you save the app, let's see how it works. So let's go back to our test. Let's say, let's ask the question, what is Build Apps? So if we have done this right, AI should now say, I don't know what is Build Apps, right? Yeah, see, it says, is a fitness coach, my area of expertise is fitness, and I don't know what Build Apps is, even though it did answer the same question just 5 minutes ago when we didn't apply any filtering, right? But the problem is now the user can see of this prompt. So we need to actually remove this here. So let's go back and let's go to the text and let's go to content. Let's click here. Let's go to formula and copy the content. So first we do an if statement to check if the repeated current role is user. So we do again equals user. So if the role is user, then we want to filter the content. Let's use a replace all formula. In the replace all formula, we need to provide the text. In this case, it will be the content. The slice of text that we want to remove is our prompt. And then the new slice of text will be just an empty string. And if the current user is not the current role is not a user, then we just put the repeated content. Let me go back and copy actually the prompt that we just constructed. Go to the formula. You need to copy it like 1-to-1 between the quote mark. Then you go here. Yes, and then you put it here, and then you don't forget this. All right. So again, we check if the role is user, then we want to replace everything in the content that says you are my fitness coach, do not answer any questions, whatever, replace it with a new slice of text, which is empty, to remove it. And then if it's not a user, then we just put the content. Let's see this in action. We can save the application, go back to the test, and let's do what is Build Apps again. We can send it, and now you can only see the question here, even though the prompt has been applied regardless. And we get the response that we want. As a fitness coach, I do not know what you're asking about. So this is where we apply the power of prompting to limit the user to whatever we need it to be limited to, and also not alert the user that there is actual filtering going back behind the scenes. So yeah, and I mean, pretty much from this point, you can do whatever. You can modify the prompt. You can make the chat better. You can add an icon with user, computer, whatever. You can make it look better. But as it is, it works perfectly fine. And yeah, don't forget to always apply prompts, because you don't want your users to get random responses just because AI felt that way to do so. So yeah, that is pretty much it, I guess.
Thanks, Carol. Excuse me. That was really great, because I think we learned a lot about just general ChatGPT, OpenAI API. OpenAI API, and how to use it, how to get the key, all that kind of stuff that's unrelated to Build Apps. And but we also saw within this context all the really great capabilities of Build Apps. I'm a big fan of the formula editor and all of the functions, and I thought we saw a lot of great uses of some of those functions. So that was really great. I just want to echo one of the people in the comments just said, "Wow," and I really think it was quite impressive.
Yeah, there are 2 questions. Let me answer These are quite important. Is there a way to find icons in formulas? Yes. So another Build Apps life hack I'm going to show you is that if you put a component, let's put it here, and then you bind it to whatever. So let's say I can set font awesome, and then let's put a check mark. You can see that it's now bound to this, but if you click here and then you switch to formula, it will automatically transform whatever you just did to a formula, and then you can see it here. So here, for instance, let's make a dynamic icon depending on the role. So here in the name, we can actually erase the check, and we can put an if function again, and the condition will be wait, give me a second. Okay, I have not done this before, so. Oh, okay, yeah, you can bind it. So instead of the name, you put an if function, and then as the condition, you check if the role is user, as we did in all of those formulas. And then as the true value, so if it is a user, let's put a star. And if it's not a user, let's put a check. Okay, it doesn't really make sense, but just to see the point that I'm saying. So again, as the formula, you can put the name of the icon depending on what the role is. So again, let's save the application, go to our test app, and let's do hello, send. As you can see, we have a star because I'm a user, and then you can see we have a check mark because because it's an assistant instead of the user. All right, yes, and I will now copy all of the formulas and send them over.
Now, there was an earlier question about why we needed to do a post to OpenAI. Did we answer that?
Yes, I did this because basically how OpenAI has designed their API, because we are sending data over instead of getting it. So it's a post because we are posting data, not getting it.
Very good. I don't see anything else in the chat. So I just wanted to thank you. I think this was probably our best session of this Devtoberfest so far. It was really specific, showed us all these capabilities. And we're definitely going to invite you again for some more sessions. So thank you, Kirill.
Yes.
Okay.
I will copy the formulas and send them to you so you can paste them to chat. So it should be available here regardless.
Great.
Just need to open.
So thanks everybody for coming. Remember to do the tutorial for the session so you can earn some points towards the Devtoberfest contest, as well as the grand prize, which is quite impressive. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carol, and have a good day.
Thank you. This was fun.